Good morning. This, I think, might be the last time I'm going to be staring into a camera instead of looking at you. So I'm really looking forward to next week when we can gather again in person. But for today, in preparation for next week, I want to tell you about somebody I met this past week. I was hiking on the McKenzie River Trail with a couple of minister friends of mine, colleagues, and another fellow came the opposite direction. We stopped, we talked. He seemed to know everything about the trails and everything. We were asking him, and he was giving us all this wonderful information. And turns out he's the head of the trail crews. He's responsible for maintaining all the trails in the area that we were in. And I was just really, really impressed that he took the time to stop and talk with us and talk about all the trail systems, how we could get involved volunteering ourselves, that sort of thing. And that's the kind of openness that I love, and I know that we embody that too. So when we gather next week, I hope we'll have the opportunity to share our stories with each other and help one another get oriented. And as we're reopening, I would like to especially remind our regular members who will be returning to be open to greeting the new people who will be walking this trail for the first time. So thank you, and it sure is great to have you here. I surely look forward to next Sunday. Take care.
Our gathering hymn today is Golden Breaks the Dawn. It's number 353 in the gray hymnal. Golden breaks the dawn, comes the eastern sun, over lake and lawn, sets its course to run. Birds above us fly, flowers bloom below, through the earth and sky, life's great mercies flow. As the spinning globe rolls away the night, nature wears a robe spun of morning light. Dawn break in me too, as in skies above. Teach me to be true, fill my heart with love. Stripped of their green, our groves appear, our vales lie buried deep in snow. The blowing north controls the air, a nipping cold chills all below. Stripped of their green, our groves appear,
poem by Mary Oliver from Mornings at Blackwater. For years, every morning, I drank from Blackwater Pond. It was flavored with oak leaves and also, no doubt, the feet of ducks. And always it assuaged me from the dry bowl of the very far past. What I want to say is that the past is the past, and the present is what your life is, and you are capable of choosing what that will be. So, come to the pond, or the river of your imagination, or the harbor of your longing, and put your lips to the world, and live your life. Let us speak aloud our affirmation. Love is our doctrine, compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home of free religious exploration, build a community of caring fellowship, nurture the hopes, and serve the needs of our world. Each week, we light 3 chalices. The first is for friends and members of this place, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem. We light our second chalice for our partner church and friends in Šimenfalva, Transylvania, Romania. And our third chalice is for our children and youth in religious education and all around the world. Let us sing the flame into life.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
This is the time for all ages. Lily Walker, the Director of Religious Education, selected this story. The Mice Who Taught the Monk to Smile, collected and adapted by Sarah Conover. Around 800 years ago in Tibet lived a cranky ancient monk. He was peaceful but not happy. It was as if a cloud of gloom constantly rained upon him. After many years, his face became deeply chiseled with a sour scowl. Mostly, he kept to himself, living alone as a hermit in a cold, desolate cave. From his mountain perch, he contemplated the world below. But sadly, the more he thought about the world beyond his cave, the senseless wars, the poor or the sick, the more it hardened his heart. The more he thought of the suffering that all creatures endured, the more fixed his frown. Occasionally, when the old monk begged for meals in a village nearby, he would meet with his fellow brothers. The other monks reminded him that the Buddha was cheerful and content. "Do you remember," they pleaded, "Buddha said that life is as quick and changeable as a dream. If you're always this serious, it'll be gone before you've ever enjoyed a minute." But the miserable monk responded, "Well, then it's all the more awful that we should suffer from a dream." So saying, the monk returned to his gloomy meditations. Some time later, the monk appeared in the village, especially glum. The other monks inquired, "Well, what happened? Did someone die?" "Ah, is there anything that doesn't?" stammered the monk. He turned and trod slowly back to his humble cave. But one day, while seated at the wooden table in his cave, something happened that changed the monk forever. As part of his religion, he created mandalas, beautiful symbolic designs made from colored rice and semi-precious gems such as turquoise, garnet, and tiger eye. Just as the old monk was arranging the bright colors in a lovely pattern, a mouse appeared on the tabletop. It scampered directly over to the mound of rice and stones and tried to remove the largest piece of turquoise. But the gem was too big for the mouse. It wouldn't budge. "Furry little sir," the monk addressed the mouse, "tell me your purpose. That blue stone is not a morsel of food. Why do you trouble yourself so?" But the mouse continued in its determined challenge. "Oh, you are just like a little person," he whispered, watching the mouse with fascination. "We also like to gather more things than we can possibly use, then fight wars over them. So beware the trouble you bring upon yourself," he cautioned the mouse. Soon, the mouse scuttled back across the table and down the table leg. "It appears as if that mouse had listened to reason," the monk muttered to himself. But soon after, the mouse returned with another small accomplice. Working together, they managed to separate the large gem from the rice, push it over the side of the table, and disappear with it. Just then, watching the remarkable feat of the two little mice, the old monk's scowl broke. It began as a slight yet irresistible upwards pull at the corners of his mouth. It spread to a noticeable twinkle in his eye, and at last his frown released into a full-blown grin. The first in many, many years. It seemed that even mice follow their heart's desire, whether it makes sense or not. He whispered a small prayer. "May all creatures, large and small, near and far, have whatever they want." The monk seemed to grasp something delightful about life that he had never understood before, and he silently thanked the mice for what they had revealed. Thanks be, and may all beings be happy.
Why don't you take a moment to feel the deeper rhythms of life? Take a breath. And be aware of this moment. This moment in time, the precious time of your life. I invite you to call to your mind's eye someone who is facing a difficult time now. Somebody who's ill, or somebody who's lost and alone, or somebody who's hurting, overwhelmed, fearful and anxious. Envision this person in your mind's eye. Or perhaps envision those you know who are also suffering in our world at this very moment. In the war zones, in the hospitals, in the prisons, down at the borders, in the ghettos, and the factories where people toil. Hold those who suffer in your heart. Let your heart be open to being present and acknowledging the pain that is being felt. Be with them now, those who suffer. Be with them now in your mind's eye. Be with them soon in the spirit of compassion, however you can be. This morning in our own congregation, we're mindful of these concerns. Priscilla Sturgis, Paul Sturgis's wife, 39 years has passed, and we mourn her passing. And Paul is grateful for the many years of love. Jesse Wilson's niece, Lindsay, is wanting a child. It's a challenging time. She and her husband, Gregory, ask for our prayers and our blessings, and so we send them forth as they build a family. Compassion is our way. Compassion. And gratitude. In these precarious times, let us be aware of how precious are the moments that flow by from day to day. What a gift it is to be alive in this amazing world. It's a gift beyond comprehension. And what a wondrous gift it is that we will soon be here together to share this life. Look around. Breathe deeply. Be overwhelmed with gratitude. Gratitude and compassion. The two steps we take that lead us along. Amen.
One of the ways we nurture community is by sharing our joys and concerns with the congregation. You may do this online by going to the UUCS homepage and clicking on Worship and then Joys and Concerns. Read what others have shared and add your own.
Our pastoral hymn today is When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. It's number 1008 in the Teal hymnal.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we feel the prices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place,
So much in our physical world is risky, even threatening. For instance, yesterday I saw a car run a red light. I literally covered my eyes, anticipating the crash with an oncoming car. Miraculously, they missed each other. Of course, COVID-19 has managed to threaten our lives in ways we never dreamed possible. Overcrowded hospitals, fever, difficulty breathing, death, disruptions in schooling, church, work, travel, constant face coverings, etc. We all want to act in ways that keep us safe and healthy. We know that sometimes this means changing our routines and modifying our physical environment. But what about our emotional and spiritual well-being? Is it possible that our emotional and spiritual health actually needs risk? Let me explain with these words from an anonymous source. To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out for another is to risk exposing our true self. To place our ideas, our dreams before a crowd is to risk loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. To live is to risk dying.
Thank you, Barbara, for that reading, and thank you, Laura and Kit, for the beautiful music every Sunday. We take it for granted, but it really makes us the community that we are. On my first day of vacation, a number of years ago, I think it was about 15 years ago, I got on my bike for a ride. First day of vacation, got on my bike for a ride, and I was riding down the hill with my son, and I tapped the brakes, and I flew over the handlebars, and I broke my collarbone. Darn it, ouch. During my first ministry down in Southern California, I remember I broke my ankle when my foot fell asleep and I stood up too fast. Ouch. In high school, a big bully punched me in the face, and he broke my nose, put me in the hospital. Before that, I broke a couple of fingers, a toe. I broke my left arm on 2 separate occasions, and I've had a few stitches from other accidents along the way. Fortunately, wounds and bones all healed up nicely. None of them caused me any prolonged suffering or injury. I can still feel this little bump in my shoulder from the bicycle accident, but it doesn't hurt. It's no problem. So now my goal is to break my habit of breaking bones. Been there, done that. Indeed, over the years, since I was a lad in our society, we've done a really darn good job of making the world safer for just about everybody. I remember when I was young, we would ride around in automobiles, no padded dashes, no seat belts, just driving along. Drunk driving laws, what were they? Those were non-existent. People smoked tobacco indoors and inside the cars. Everybody had ashtrays in the house for guests who so indulged. So children often had to inhale secondhand smoke. But we changed. Implementing these safety changes was a steep uphill battle in which common sense and the common good finally prevailed over the car manufacturers and the tobacco industry. Many lives have been saved, and many lives were lost because we placed profit over people's well-being. So that's a very sad thing to think about. So I'm all for good safety. And in the past few years, I've been especially reminded of how important safety is, the tragic consequences of a lack of safety. I've seen it when I have delivered the invocation at the annual Workers' Memorial Service at the Capitol Mall. It's always in April. And there, different officials, we gather and we have a service, and I do the invocation. And when I'm there, I meet and console family members from around the state who mourn the loss of a loved one. The dad who fell off the ladder picking fruit, or got crushed by heavy machinery, or got hit by a drunk motorist who didn't see the roadside workers. And I remember conducting that memorial service for that roadside worker right here in this sanctuary. Many of these losses could have been prevented by better safety measures. My heart aches as I look out at the family members who've come down. It's family members of those who've died on the job in the past year, and I look out at them and I go out and speak to them, and it's really sad. So I can understand when I see this official-looking bumper sticker on some trucks around town, sometimes cars too, and the bumper sticker proclaims, you've seen it, safety is our goal. Safety is my goal, safety is our goal. I can't remember which, if they say safety is our goal, I think it is. Safety is our goal. Apparently, though, not everybody is on board with this drive for ultimate safety, like the Europeans who design playground equipment. Get this, not only do they not make the equipment as safe as possible, as we do here in America since we love our children so much, the Europeans, what's up with them? They're making the playground equipment riskier. But oddly enough, they actually have fewer playground accidents than American kids, even though the European kids are more likely to use the play equipment. So that's strange. What's going on here? One child advocacy expert, Megan Tolarowski, who has studied this in great depth. I mean, she studied thousands of playgrounds, set up cameras. They really did it. She studied it in great depth. And she notes that European playgrounds are more naturalistic, they're cheaper to make, and they are riskier, and therefore more appealing to the children than the American ones. American playgrounds, many kids find them to be pretty boring. So, well, why are there less injuries, though, on a more dangerous playground? Tolarowski notes that this is because, quote, we have eliminated risk to the point that children are now too weak to play effectively without injuring themselves. And she asks this question: are we willing to challenge our assumptions about danger and risk in order to give our children opportunities to grow? Are we willing to challenge our assumptions about danger and risk in order to give our children opportunities to grow? That's a question that it seems counterintuitive at first, putting your child in situations where there's greater risk. It seems counterintuitive to think that this is a good idea. And then I remembered a question I've often asked myself and other parents. I've asked this question, hypothetical question. Suppose you could have arranged it such that your child, your precious child, the child you love, would have been spared all the pain and disappointments, the skinned knees, the broken bones, broken hearts in life. If you could have spared your child all of this, would you do it? And yes, some things absolutely should be done on children's behalf. Every child should feel loved and affirmed, and we should be aware of newer, more insidious threats to our children's psychological well-being, like addiction to Instagram and social media, which we know wreaks untold harm on our youth. Safeguards are sorely needed there, but so much lies beyond our control. So much lies beyond our control. Our children and our loved ones, you and I, will experience some hardship and heartbreak along the path of life, and no amount of safety precautions is going to spare us from that. And if a parent could remove all such obstacles, however, if you could do it, what would be the end result? What would be the end result? Quite likely, the same result that U.S. playground designers have gotten. Weaker, less adventurous, and less resilient children who are actually at greater risk since they have not developed these life coping skills. And so now that bumper sticker, when I see it, safety is my goal, safety is our goal, that reads like directions to a soul-deadening cul-de-sac. If safety is your goal, if that's your goal in life, that's your vision, safety, well, stay in bed. Don't get out, don't do anything, don't risk anything, dare anything, because that's going to put you at risk. But wait a second, even if you stay in bed, that's actually probably going to put you in even greater risk. You can't avoid it. There's no way that those of us embodied in these mortal coils can avoid suffering. Which calls to mind the observation of the great psychologist Carl Jung. This is a quote that's always stuck in my mind. I'm trying to work through it. He said, neurosis is the avoidance of legitimate suffering. Neurosis is the avoidance of legitimate suffering. What's legitimate suffering? What is he talking about here? Jungian counselor Richard Beck expands upon this, and he says, life is going to hurt at times. And when it begins to hurt, don't panic, because if you panic and try to avoid the hurt, you will often bring more pain into your life than the actual hurt. Don't overcorrect in your panic to avoid the pain, or you'll drive off the road and crash. Don't run away from, avoid, deny, repress, mask, or meditate your hurt. Just let it hurt. Just let it hurt. Let the hurt wash over you like a wave and let it pass. Because if you fight it, if you try to avoid the hurt, you'll stop living. You'll stop living. You'll stop being fully present in the moment, always insulating and protectively distancing yourself. That, or you'll become frozen in time by hurt you are unwilling to face or feel. You'll start becoming a bundle of neurotic symptoms used to protect yourself from the pain and the risk of living. So learn, my dear students, Richard Beck writes, so learn, my dear students, learn to suffer well. Well, learn to suffer well. That's not much fun. I don't like doing it, and I'm not that good at it. But I've learned some. Some of my best early experiences were at these meditation retreats I used to attend. They're called sesshin. Sesshin, the Zen Buddhists called them, wherein you meditate many times a day from early morning to evening. And that sounds nice, doesn't it? Doing all this meditation, just this meditation. Well, that's not what it's like at all. For me, it wasn't. It was my legs hurt. My legs hurt. That's all I could think about. And you're not allowed to move a lot, because in these meditation retreats, there's a discipline. You're supposed to be quiet. If you move once, maybe you get away with it. Twice, you're going to get reprimanded. You have to be still. And if you're in pain, you just sit with it. You think you're damaging your legs, and you think you won't be able to walk again, but it's not true. And then you get in a different position, less stressful, but then the pain is still there, and the mind is playing this funny game where you're trying to avoid the pain, and yet that makes it worse. And finally, you just stop playing that game, and you just kind of get exhausted a little bit and relax into it, and there's less suffering. You can find some equanimity, great equanimity, even in the midst of pain. That doesn't usually describe how I handle pain, but I know you can do it. Having to sit with pain while trying to focus your mind on your breath, it does ground you. It grounds you and enables you to be there, to be present and not run away and not to exacerbate your pain by fighting against it. We all suffer. Suffering is a mystery. It deserves its own topic of exploration. I won't attempt to try to justify or explain why it must be such a part of this life. But there can be no doubt that suffering is interwoven into the fabric of our lives. And paradoxically, this calls forth the great goodness that we see in the world. That is, when we're looking at the world and not the headlines. When we recognize suffering around us, when we recognize it around us with an open heart, compassion arises, and naturally we reach out to one another to comfort and console and connect, bring new insight, new hope, new healing. Which brings us to the question the author George Eliot asked. And she asked, what do we live for if it is not to make life less difficult for each other? What do we live for if it is not to make life less difficult for each other? I love that question. I love that question. It may be my favorite question because it sends me in good directions. It awakens the deepest yearnings of the human hearts, and it puts you on the path. This question will put you on the path to salvation. Did I just say salvation? What am I talking about? Salvation is not a word you will often hear in Unitarian Universalist circles because it is so fraught with misunderstanding. What do I mean by salvation? Well, conventionally, salvation is imagined as working like this. It's as though the almighty power of the universe selectively chooses true believers to spare them and them alone from the torments of eternal hell. That's the common image that we have of salvation. Banish that image from your mind whenever you hear me speak of salvation. In our liberal free faith tradition, salvation is recognized as taking place in this world, and it is a transgenerational, goes across the generations. It's a collective endeavor. We don't get there until everyone gets there, and no one is left out, no one is left behind. Consider the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, wherein salvation equals enlightenment, liberation from the delusions that imprison the human spirit. In this tradition, they invite you to take the most impossible vow, and it is impossible. It's called the Bodhisattva vow. A bodhisattva is any true seeker on the path to Buddhahood or enlightenment. So you get this Bodhisattva vow. It is an impossible vow, and yet you make it because you know you must do so because of the universal nature of salvation. In part, this vow states, sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Wow. Sentient beings are numberless. You can't even count them. And now you're vowing to save them all. How does that work? How do you? Well, it means that you vow to save them from ignorance and the delusions of separateness. But how can you save everyone? Well, I think you don't have to, but you do have to do something. You can do so much good in countless ways from day to day, and you don't have to worry about how long it's going to take or how many people you have to save because it's joyful work. It's joyful work. And it begins simply by having profound respect for each being that you encounter, wishing them well, treating them well. And I've recited that vow a number of times, along with all others. And I look, nobody has to say this vow. Nobody's watching. You could seal your lips if you don't want to, but we're moved to do it. We do this vow. Our hearts just pull us in, and it's completely congruent with the universalist side of our tradition. Our universalist forebears, they were the ones who championed a belief in the universal salvation of all souls, and for espousing this boundlessly compassionate theology, they were roundly condemned as heretics. But this is part of our tradition, universal salvation, seeing salvation as being completely inclusive of all souls. Universal salvation. In day-to-day life, that's where you get traction, forward motion on this path. The path to salvation is not a path, this one path. The path to salvation leads in countless thousands, millions, trillions of compassionate directions. This path is mostly walked in simple, small steps, taken by countless love-intoxicated individuals in the world from day to day across the span of many generations. Simply, succinctly put, salvation refers to the state of being saved or protected from harm or a dire situation. So whenever you do notice somebody in distress, and to do that, it's good to slow down and pay attention to what's happening in the world. And sometimes we walk too fast and we have blinders on, so we're not noticing things. But if you will slow down, you will notice things, and then you'll have the opportunity to help somebody in distress. Whenever you can discern how to do this, it's a beautiful thing. Whenever you can help somebody make their life just a little bit easier by giving a hug, a gift, by offering a hand up or a friendship or some spiritual inspiration, some encouragement, some kindness. When you do this, you're doing the work of salvation. Or as they call it in the Jewish tradition, tikkun olam, healing the world. Healing the world. Isn't that a beautiful image? Tikkun olam, healing the world. That's the work of salvation. The great Buddhist poet and sage, Shantideva, perhaps said it best in his beloved prayer.
May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector of those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without light, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, and a servant to all in need for as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain. Until then, may I, too, abide to dispel the misery of the world.
I love that prayer. It's on the UUA website, by the way, if you want to look it up, the Shantideva's prayer. That's the best version. Our UUA website, I think, has the best version of that prayer. I like to read it over again and again, because then it begins to grab a hold of your heart and your spiritual imagination, and it will begin to change your life. And you're going to often forget something. When you get involved in the work of salvation, you're going to forget something, and that's good. You're going to forget something, you're going to forget yourself, which points to the paradox of salvation. We save ourselves when we lose ourselves in loving service to the greater whole. So be it. And now, please join me in a period of quiet reflection. How could you make life a little easier for somebody today? Who could you help? Somebody you live with? Or maybe there's a lonely neighbor. That homeless person on the street sure could use a kind word. The people who serve us They're human beings. Smile at them. Treat them kindly. Somebody wants to talk to you. Welcome the gift of their being. Open your heart. Listen. Listen. Hug. Learn to hug with love in your heart for all beings. Learn to live in such a way that you forget yourself because you're so in love with everybody else. Amen.
We support UUCS through pledges, individual and group projects, and connections with one another. We also support the Salem community with donations to the Marion Polk Food Share. Each month, we share your UUCS monetary donations with an organization that exemplifies our principles. For October, we are supporting the nonprofit organization Hope and Habitat Village, HHV. Founded by members of this congregation, its mission is to provide transitional housing in the Salem area for people without shelter. It is currently building a micro-housing community and is developing plans for a women's shelter for single women at risk of losing their homes. Your gifts to UUCS and to Hope and Habitat Village, whatever the amount, are greatly appreciated. Thank you. To make your donation, visit the website, click on the Donate button, and follow the instructions. Thank you for supporting this congregation and our wider community.
If music be the food of love, sing on, sing on, sing on, sing on, till I am filled with joy. For then my listening soul you move, for then my listening soul you move, to pleasures that can never cloy. Your eyes, your mien, your tongue declare that your music everywhere. Your eyes, your mien, your tongue declare that your music everywhere. Pleasures invade both eye and ear, so fierce, so fierce, so fierce, so fierce, that transports out the wound, and all my senses feasted on, and all my senses feasted on, though yet the trait is only song. Sure I must perish by your charms, unless you save me in your arms. Sure I must perish by your charms, unless you save me in your arms.
Rick will now light the social justice lantern as a symbol of the actions that we may take today and in the days to come to uplift ourselves and each other. Although Rick will extinguish the other chalices, May we each find ways to kindle and share our own internal beacons of love. Thank you, Rick. So, reopening Sunday, woohoo! October 31st, also a splendid day, Halloween. And that Sunday, we have a very special presentation, Tales of Our Ancestors, with stories from members that they've contributed their ancestor stories and photographs. So I believe we may have our traditional Halloween parade with small children and Monster Mash music. So please come. You do need a proof of vaccination, so bring that. And of course, we're still wearing masks. Next week, a name will be drawn to win the prize for getting the date correct for the reopening Sunday. Thank you. Let's see. Zoom fellowship is still continuing since we can't see each other today. So please join everybody at 12 p.m. Today by clicking fellowship at noon at the UUCS homepage. And the news of community, Rick, would you like to handle this one?
The announcements are fun to do because there's exciting things to do here. Our microfinance team celebrates the money allocated, I can't quite read it, for the loans to the 7 families in the, you read it on the website, I can't quite read it from here. There's some good news from the microfinance program, and you certainly want to keep on that. Choir practice is resuming on Zoom. Choir practice, oh my gosh, it's going to be so great to have a choir back. So pay attention to that so you can get connected and start tuning up your voice. Next Celebrating Diversity concert is going to be November 12th. We'll talk about that more as we get closer to that date. You can always look on our website for various announcements of activities and programs. But the big announcement is we'll be here next Sunday in person. Hallelujah. Thank goodness. I am ready. Let's do it.
Our closing hymn today is We Laugh, We Cry. We Cry. It's number 354 in the gray hymnal. We're going to sing verses 1, 2, and 3.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a time to be together. as we live, so shall we die. And when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow, we have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer.
Let us join hands in body and spirit while saying these words together. May faith in the Spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come.